former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev tweeted that he loved seeing, quote, the insolent pig finally get a proper slapdown in the Oval Office. And by the way, he was...
An example of a measure that I will put in place as Prime Minister is 100% tariffs on Teslas. I think that should get some attention in the White House. We saw a U.S. president parroting Kremlin talking points. And I want to be very clear for the record that Putin is a dictator. His invasion of Ukraine is criminal and illegal. Zelensky.
Welcome. Today we are going to unravel the statements of the candidate for Prime Minister of Canada, who intends to act boldly in response to Donald Trump's tariffs. And get ready to see the raw side of what might be the true strategy of recent times. The candidate wants to use the dollar for dollar charge as if it were tooth for tooth. But only Trump knows how to protect our economy strategically.
Upside down right now. Donald Trump berated Ukraine's president in the Oval Office on Friday. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev tweeted that he loved seeing, quote, the insolent pig finally get a proper slapdown in the Oval Office. And by the way, he was referring to President Zelensky, not Donald Trump. Putin's longtime spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, came out and said publicly that U.S. foreign policy now, quote, largely coincides with our vision, as in the Kremlin's vision. And I don't know that I've ever said this before, but Dmitry Peskov is absolutely right. I mean, just today, NBC News confirmed that the White House is pausing all military aid to Ukraine. And Reuters reported today that the Trump administration is also drawing up a plan to potentially give Russia sanctions relief. So, yeah, Donald Trump really is going all in on helping Russia, while simultaneously inflicting as much pain as he can on our closest allies. Today, Trump confirmed that 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada will go into effect at midnight tonight, just a couple hours from now. And as you know, that won't just hurt them, it will hurt you, the American consumer. And that fear was reflected in the market today, with the Dow closing down nearly 650 points, thanks in part to this.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take effect tomorrow?
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
Joining me now is FREELAND. She served as Canada's finance minister and deputy prime minister under Justin Trudeau. She's now a candidate for prime minister herself. It is great to see you. You could be, which is pretty incredible to say out loud, you could be the prime minister this time next week. Tariffs, of course, are going to be a major issue. You've suggested Canada should fight back in a very targeted way. You've been very forward about that. You've pushed to target Wisconsin dairy farmers, Michigan manufacturers, Florida oranges, to name a few, as a way of really specifically hitting states that are politically key to Donald Trump. You know what gets to his heart there. How far, for people who are watching, are you?
She promises a response of the same magnitude. But this is just a cheap reaction that could completely halt jobs and affect the wallets of American citizens. While it is a threat with absurd tariffs, Trump has always made firm decisions to protect the industry and economy of the United States. And this attempt at a response shows a lack of vision and the weakness of a strategy that does not take into account the real impact on citizens. See more absurd statements below.
Ready to go on tariffs. They're gonna be put into place in a couple of hours. How far are you ready to go? And what other targets would you want to aim for?
Well, it is great to be with you, Jen. And I am running to be the next leader of the Liberal Party and the next Prime Minister of Canada, because right now we Canadians have to stand up and fight for our country. If the tariffs are imposed, as Prime Minister, I will fight back with dollar for dollar retaliatory tariffs. And our retaliation is going to be surgically targeted to create the maximum pressure on the White House to stop what the Wall Street Journal has described quite rightly as the dumbest trade war in history. An example of a measure that I will put in place as Prime Minister is 100% tariffs on Teslas. I think that should get some attention in the White House. And, Jen, I think Americans, I don't think you think about Canada all that much. But I think when you do think about Canada, you might think, oh, they're smaller than us. Is this really something I should be worried about? Well, the stock market is worried. Shares have gone down, and this has been a terrible year for U.S. stocks already because of these tariff threats. And the reality is, you guys need us. We are your largest market by far. The US sells more to Canada than to China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. So we do have leverage. And as Prime Minister, I will use it. And not because I want to. I mean, the irony about this, the stupidity about this is right now we have a balanced and mutually beneficial relationship. There is a win-win here. There is an exit ramp. But Americans need to know that if you hit Canada, we will hit back, and we will be sure that our retaliation hurts.
I think Americans are very concerned right now about these tariffs that are about to go into place and could impact their bottom line and their cost of goods. Let me ask you, as you just mentioned,
The candidate warns that the new taxes will affect the wallet and increase the price from fuel to food. And who pays the price in the end is the American consumer. Today, the market has already reacted strongly. This only shows that this disastrous retaliation is nothing more than another risky move that, in reality, only harms people. The traditional approach of tariff attacks, out of touch with reality, can turn into a real shot in the foot. Check out a bit more of this shameful interview.
Elon Musk, I think everybody in this country is learning a lot about his influence, which is unwieldy and over the top, just to say a few words. You mentioned 100% tariffs on Teslas to hit Elon Musk. He owns a number of other companies. Obviously, there's Starlink. Would you ever consider canceling Canada's contracts with Starlink, for example?
Absolutely. And Canadian premiers have already said that they would do that. I think you made a really important point a minute ago, Jen, which is right now, this is maybe abstract for Americans. But if these tariffs are put in place, it is going to hurt Americans. Anyone who has a 401k is going to be hit because the stock market is already hurting. Anyone who needs to fill their car up with gas is going to be hit. You are going to be putting tariffs, a tax, on the oil and gas and electricity that we sell you. Totally absurd. Your grocery prices are going to go up because you know what you need to grow food in the United States? You need fertilizer. And 80% of it comes from Canada, and you're going to put a 25% tax on it? I mean, the Wall Street Journal is right. This is dumb. This is utterly self-mutilating, and our retaliation is going to make it worse because we can't stand for these attacks on our economy. So really what...
Imposing a 100% tariff on Tesla is a way to draw attention at the White House. But this measure can destabilize entire sectors of the economy. And while the candidate bets on unrealistic threats, Trump always considers practical repercussions and protects national interests without exposing oneself to unnecessary risks. And that's what makes a true strategist. This proposal reveals an attempt to destabilize the system, but it also demonstrates a lack of planning and an unnecessary and disorganized attack. But she forgot one thing. Who depends on whom in this story?
I'm saying to you and to your viewers, Jen, is call the White House now. Say to the president, say to your congressmen, say to your senators, say to your governors, this is self-mutilation. This just doesn't make sense. There is no need to do this. But if you follow this path, it's going to hurt America.
It's not every day when you hear a candidate to be the leader of a neighboring country call for people to call the White House and their members of Congress. So that speaks to the significance of the moment. I wanted to turn to Ukraine because I think when I first met you, you were a very well-respected journalist. You spent a lot of time in Ukraine. You covered Russia. This is obviously something I think we're all trying to figure out what's happening and why right now. There are a lot of theories as to why Trump is siding with Putin and badgering Zelensky, to put it one way. Why do you think he is?
Well, I would like to start, Jen, by just being very clear about what we are seeing. And I think it's important to say the scenes that we saw in the Oval Office on Friday were shameful. They were appalling. We saw a U.S. president parroting Kremlin talking points. And I want to be very clear for the record that Putin is a dictator. His invasion of Ukraine is criminal and illegal. Zelensky is the democratically elected president of Ukraine, and Ukrainians are bravely fighting for their democracy and their sovereignty. And by the way, they're doing it alone. We should be grateful to them for fighting for democracy and the rules-based international order, and Canadians certainly are.
And the candidate puffs up her chest to say that the United States sells more to Canada than to other countries. But did she forget that it's the other way around? And what weighs more for her country? And that the United States is the nation that buys the most from Canada. Trump has always used his influence in the United States intelligently, demonstrating that true strength comes from the ability of those who command respect and negotiates in his favor. And the candidate's action, if she really puts it into practice, could harm not only Americans, but also Canadians. In conclusion, the candidate's tariff threats are a desperate move that could greatly harm both Americans and Canadians. And while she bets on impulsive responses, Trump already does things differently. He demonstrated that true leadership is about protecting the economy and ensuring that the United States is treated with respect. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell to not miss any updates, and leave your like. Also, share this video with as many people as you can and with your friends. And leave here in the comments what you think about this proposal. And together, we show that the voice of the people is much stronger than any external threat. Thank you very much to everyone. See you in the next video.